Hi everybody, my name is Danielle Nicole and welcome to Monetary Makeup. So I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit overwhelming with all of these new foundation and concealer releases, as if we needed more. However, I love reviewing foundation and concealer. So I have a semi-new concealer release for you guys today. So this is coming at us from the drugstore from none other than Revlon. So this is called the Revlon ColorStay Skin Awaken Caffeine plus Vitamin C 24 hours 5-in-1 concealer. Now this concealer is supposed to erase, perfect, conceal, brighten, hydrate, and refresh. So I'm really excited to test out this concealer on my 30 plus oily dehydrated acne prone skin. And while I test out this new concealer for you guys today, the topic of the day is going to be pertaining to life insurance. Now, I know I've been speaking quite a bit about life insurance for the topic of the day recently, but what happens if you are over 50 and you do not have the health to qualify for life insurance? Well, if you live in the United States and you're over 50, perhaps there is a solution you might not have heard of. So if you're excited to get started and enjoy the video while you're watching, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, and let's get started right now.
That headband though.
You like it?
You look good in it. You look like a Disney princess character.
I do?
I'm not gonna lie.
Aw, thank you, sweetie. You're so sweet.
Like you literally look like a Disney princess right now.
Sometimes kids say the sweetest things and just make your day.
Yep.
All right, I will get you guys zoomed in a little bit closer in just a minute here. I do want to mention the only thing I have on for makeup is a little bit of eyeshadow and mascara. I'm going to finish up the rest of my makeup once we do the complexion products. And the only thing I have in my skin so far is moisturizer. Now the shade I picked up in this new Revlon concealer is the shade 002. So I'm going to swatch this next to some of my other concealers. That way you can see the depth and undertone of this shade. All right, I have to say, you guys, I am so excited to find a fair to light, cool undertone. So the swatches I have for you, this first one right here, which is fair to light and very cool tone, this is the new Revlon concealer. In the middle is the Wet n Wild Incognito concealer in the shade Fair Beige. And this is the new NYX Serum concealer in the shade Light. All right, so first things first, I do want to mention I am not a fan of the packaging, and that's because, as you can see, this concealer has that sponge tip applicator. Now, I know these are pretty quick and easy to use, but just overall, I'm not loving the sponge. But of course, the packaging is only a small portion. Let's see if this product performs as well as it says it's going to. So I just squeezed a little bit on the tip here, as you can see. Again, just another reason why I'm not a huge fan of these little sponge tip applicators. I just feel like it makes it so difficult to control the product, and a lot of it gets, wasted in there. But anyways, let's get started with application. Now I'm thinking I'm going to do one eye at a time, so I'm not sure if this is a quick drying formula or not. Using the Shot Miss A AOA Studio E102 brush. All right, let's start with the brush on this side, and then I will go in with a sponge on the other side to see how it does. I am just shocked at how pink this concealer is. I have to say, I think this is the most pink shade I have in my entire collection. Now, I didn't mention this, but I am not going to be using a primer today because I don't want it to affect the wear test of this concealer. So let's just see how it does on its own. So this formula feels very hydrating, very lightweight, and I would say it has light coverage. I'm not sure how much coverage this concealer claims to have, but this is just one quick light pass and nothing on this eye. All right, let's get the other eye on. I'm going to use my damp sponge from Shot Miss A. These are their mini sponges. These work great for concealer. So this is so interesting because it seems like it is drying down pretty quickly. However, it feels very hydrating and creamy. You know how a lot of matte concealers dry down, and as they're drying down, it just feels so drying? It doesn't feel that way. but it almost seems like it self-sets. All right, yeah, so I think it looks great so far. Granted, this is one very light layer. Now that I know that the shade is a great shade match, I'm going to use this concealer all over as foundation too. That way we can really test this product out. All right, so I'm going to, ooh, I have a hair right in the way. All right, so I'm going to dab this on the forehead. All right, let's start with my damp Shop Miss A large size sponge and start blending. Now, you guys, I actually have not really been a huge fan of Revlon, just because I haven't really tried too many of their products. So if you guys have any favorites from Revlon, definitely let me know down below. All right, I'm going to do the left half of the skin. Should have picked up a deeper shade for foundation, but just wanted to test this one out first. All right, let's start with a brush. AOA Studio High Def F2 brush. All right, so let's see how this concealer does with a brush on this side. And then if I have to go back in with a sponge in a minute, I can do that. This feels so lightweight. All right, so I'm not sure if this concealer is simply drying down extremely fast, because I do find it kind of gripping to my dry patches before I even have a chance to kind of blend it out. But it could be because I simply use the excess that was on the sponge applicator tip. So for the other side, I'm going to squeeze out kind of a fresh amount, and let's see how it does on the right side. I don't know why this is so satisfying. All right, apply a fresh layer on this side here. All right, let's try a sponge on this side. Kind of blending a little bit fast. I feel like I'm in a cartoon, just pouncing as fast as I can before it dries down. All right, so I just kind of wiped off what was on the rest of this applicator. And I always do this with my concealers or foundation, especially around the nose area. So I'm just kind of building it up in those areas. All right, so this is what the skin is looking like with one light layer. Now, do you guys have a preference for the brush side versus the sponge side? So this is such a strange formula, you guys, because it feels so lightweight and it feels so hydrating, but the product dries down so fast. I mean, it's confusing me because I would expect this concealer to be very hydrating as far as how it looks on the skin. Now, it feels that way, but what I'm noticing as I look in the monitor, it looks a little bit drying, especially around my nose and my dry patches. So can you see just how it's a little bit drying right here? Now, that said, I do feel like this covered my redness so well. I have a huge breakout on my chin right now, and I feel like that covered it really well. So even though it is light coverage, I feel like it covers the skin while still letting your natural skin peek through. All right, so I do want to see if this formula is buildable at all. Now, we are going to work in sections because of the drying time. So I'm just going to add, just the tiniest little dab underneath my eyes. And I'm going to use a sponge. That way I can get some of that moisture back underneath my eyes. And I'm just taking my e.l.f. Glow Dewy Mist and just redampening the sponge here. All right, so let me blend as fast as I possibly can. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more on the rest of the skin. I'm pretty much just using whatever is left on the applicator. I'm not squeezing out any other product. All right, so let's see if this builds at all. The shade is perfect for me. I would say if I use this again for foundation, I would probably go up one more shade. But as far as the under eyes go, that 002, it's a great match. I'm just shocked at how pink and cool tone this shade is too. It is so rare, especially for a drugstore. All right, now I'm just kind of wiping off whatever is left in the nose crease. And I have a couple little blemishes right here. Now, I typically wouldn't use such a light shade to try and conceal, but Just want to see how it does for spot concealing as well. All right, so what do you guys think about how the skin is looking? I would say I went in with one layer. Even though I went in a second time, I used, hardly any product. So I'd say it's a good one full layer. And I did go back over with the sponge on both sides. So it's interesting because I feel like from afar, it looks amazing. However, up close, I am noticing it really clinging to my forehead, which is interesting because my forehead usually is not a problematic area. Usually my forehead is the most oiliest place on my face. So it's just interesting. I can kind of see the product just sitting on top of my skin. Now, I feel like it looks okay, but I'm just kind of torn because I am shocked at how drying this looks on the skin because, as I mentioned, it feels so hydrating. So anyways, what do you guys think about how this Revlon concealer is looking so far? All right, now that the concealer is on, next let's go on with some cream products. So this is the ABH Contour Stick in the shade Fawn. I absolutely love this contour stick. It's such a great shade. I will swatch it for you guys. So it's definitely cool toned, but it's not super gray. So I really love using this for the cheekbones. And I'm just going to draw a line down the nose. I'm really curious to see how these products layer over this concealer, just because it looks a little bit dry right now. All right, this is my Holy Grail brush for nose contour. This is the Real Techniques number 447. The shape is just perfect for the nose. So I'm just going to blend a little bit here. I don't know if we're going to need any powder over this. I probably will powder down one side for those of you that do wear powder, but it does seem like it self-sets. I have really been enjoying this brush for the cheekbones. This is the e.l.f. Putty Bronzer brush, and it has a pretty thick density to it, so it's great for stippling on bronzer or contour. Just gonna blend this out real quick. Add some to the forehead, or my 5 head, as I say. Yeah, when I first tried out this e.l.f. Putty Bronzer brush, I don't know why, but when I first tried it, I wasn't super impressed, but I actually washed it after that video, and I feel like it kind of fluffed out, so now I'm quite enjoying it. I find a lot of contour products work great for bronzer because they typically don't, lean quite as cool as I'd like, but for bronzer, they're perfect. All right, I do not notice any of the concealer picking up, so that's good. All right, so I'm just going to use what's left on the sponge applicator here, just kind of clean up and get a more precise jawline or cheekbone, I mean. And I just put a little stripe down my nose. And I'm just going to use the brush I used for the concealer and just blend that out a little bit. Gosh, this is such a weird formula. I guess I'm just surprised at how drying it looks on the skin so far. All right, so the contour went on fine. I did not notice any of the concealer picking up on itself. So next I want to warm up the skin just a little bit more. So I'm going in with the Fenty Cheeks Out Cream Bronzer in Butter Biscuit. Now my favorite way to apply these cream bronzers is with a dry or a damp sponge, just because I already have this damp sponge from the concealer. Just going to dip straight in here. I'm just going to pounce just a little bit to warm up the skin. Okay, so I want to try something here. So for whatever reason, every single time I apply bronzer, doesn't matter if it's cream, powder, doesn't matter, like I said. So I have a problem area right here. It just kind of gets a little bit pink throughout the day. Not really so much where I apply highlighter, but right below that. So I'm going to squirt out just a tiny bit of this concealer because I typically do this with my other concealers. And I'm just going to take the tip of my sponge and dip in and just get a little bit of product. And I just want to tap lightly right here. Kind of curious to see if this will help blend the bronzer in with my skin, or if it's going to, you know, look patchy or do anything weird. Do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so it's only been a couple of minutes. All I applied was contour and bronzer. And even though I feel like this concealer self-sets, it is creasing underneath my eyes already. So I think before I move on to blush and highlighter, next let's go in and set the skin. So I'm just going to tap out underneath the eyes. Now I didn't tap out this eye yet, but can you guys see that creasing right there? Not terrible, but you know, it's enough that I notice it. So I want to go in with a powder that I am very familiar with. That way I can tell if it is the concealer or not. So this is one of my favorite powders, the By Terry Hyaluronic Hydra Powder. So I just grabbed a little bit here and let me set the under eyes. Okay, you guys, so I know I said I was only going to set one eye, but the fact that there was that much creasing and it had only been, you know, 5 minutes, if that, I am going to set both eyes, so I'm so sorry, but I'm just sure it will crease if I do not do that. All right, same technique. Let's set the rest of the skin. This powder is so finely milled. Can you guys see it shooting up? All right, so the skin has been set with powder. I'm going to add just a little bit more makeup, you know, blush, highlight, all of that, and be right back. All right, you guys, so makeup is done, and I feel like the skin looks okay. It's definitely not, you know, the worst concealer I've used by any means, but the one thing I'm noticing is that my oils are starting to come through now, and I feel like it's looking a little bit better. So I'll be really curious to see if this looks better at the end of the night or if it's going to get worse. Now, as you may or may not know, one of my problem areas is around my nose and around my mouth. That's just where I get texture and have a little bit of dry patches. So I'm not sure if you can tell, but right here, it's really caking up around that area. And I do feel like the under eyes look okay, but as far as the dry patches and my texture around my mouth especially, I feel like it's clinging to that a little bit. So yeah, this is what the skin is looking like right now. All right, next let's cut into the topic of the day, and then I will meet you back here at the end of the night for my final thoughts and a wear test. Hi everybody, welcome to the topic of the day. So I know the last few weeks for the topic of the day I've been discussing life insurance. However, the one factor I feel like is not discussed enough in life insurance specifically is what happens if you do not have the health to qualify for underwriting. Now, the tip that I'm going to give today is for folks that are 50 and older. So if you find yourself in a situation where you would like to pick up life insurance, but you unfortunately just do not have the health to qualify for a standard policy, then there is an option called Guaranteed Whole Life. So basically what Guaranteed Whole Life Insurance is exactly what it sounds like. So it's whole life insurance in the sense that the premiums never go up, the death benefit never decreases, and the policy can never be revoked. The only time the policy could ever be canceled on you is if you stop paying the premiums. But the best part about it is it's guaranteed whole life, meaning there is no health underwriting, no health questions whatsoever. Now, the important factor about guaranteed whole life insurance is that it typically has a graded benefit. So what a graded benefit means, it's actually not as complicated as it may sound. It simply has a certain time frame that you receive a certain amount of death benefit should you pass away in that time frame. So the time frame on these policies, not for how long they last, but for the graded period is typically 3 years. So every policy is different. However, what typically happens is the first year, if you were to pass away, you would receive your premiums back that you put into the policy. The second year, your beneficiary would receive your premiums plus 10% back. And the third year, your beneficiary would receive the entire death benefit amount. So I do want to make that very clear. All policies are different, especially depending on the company you sign up with. So just to sum it up, if you were to pass away within 3 years of picking up the policy, typically you would not receive the entire death benefit amount. However, after that time frame, then your beneficiary would receive the entire death benefit that you purchased. So guaranteed whole life policies are typically only offered to folks that are 50 and older. So if you find yourself in a situation where you do feel like life insurance is necessary for your family, however, you unfortunately do not qualify for their health underwriting or their health questions, then a guaranteed whole life policy may be an option you want to consider. Now, as I say in almost every topic of the day, everyone's situation and goals are unique, so please make sure you talk to your own financial advisor or own insurance advisor before making any decisions. So I do hope that learning about graded whole life insurance was beneficial for you all. Next, let's cut into the wear test and my final thoughts. Hi everybody, I just got home from work and my makeup has been on now for about 8 hours. Okay, so I just brought you guys in really close so that way I can show you what I am looking at. But take a look especially around my mouth, around my nose, and my forehead. So usually my forehead is not a problem area, but it is like so patchy. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to pick this up on camera. And then if you take a look at my nose, like look right here. See how it's just like really clinging around those areas, especially around the nose. And then right here and right here, the concealer is starting to come off. So I'm a little bit bummed, you guys, because as I was swatching this Revlon 5-in-1 concealer, it felt so creamy and hydrating, and it felt the exact same way when I was applying it on the skin. I was really hoping I was going to be able to add Revlon to my collection, but unfortunately, this is just a hard pass for me. So as far as the under eyes go, I noticed immediate creasing. Now, once I went in with setting powder, I feel like it did help to correct the creases under the eyes, but now that I'm home and it's been a full day, I just feel like it looks really cakey under the eyes, and then, you know, it's clinging around my nose, it's starting to come off around my mouth. So just overall, I don't think this is a great product if you have any sort of dehydration or dry skin. Now, if you are looking for a great hydrating concealer that provides phenomenal coverage, then I would recommend the NYX Serum Concealer. That is their newest concealer that they just released from the Bare line. Now, I did review that concealer, so I will link that video right up here for you guys. So I would highly recommend the NYX concealer over this Revlon. So it's okay, they cannot all be winners. So I hope that you found this video and the topic of the day helpful. Hopefully it can help to save you guys some money. I just want to thank you all so much for watching another one of my videos, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye guys!